And now I'd like to invite Geetha for her presentation, please.
I've only been in India for 9 days this year, and I couldn't wait to come when I heard they were having a function in the school. I came to Khammam. I've never been to Khammam before. I came about on Wednesday night and attended the school for 2 days. And I was delighted to see how the children and the teachers were engaging with each other. And I heard that the parents here are quite open to the process of dialogue. So I have been engaging in the process of dialogue since I was 6 years old. So that's amazing for me to see that it can make such a difference. If you know how to speak and speak confidently without embarrassment, you are giving your children the greatest gift by engaging them in dialogue, because they learn to use language very well. They also do not expect too much from language. They also learn to appreciate life, the real things in life. They appreciate actuality. The process actually encourages the observation, our capacity to observe, to come to the fore. And the greatest gift you can give your child is to encourage them to engage in dialogue. Because it's a very tough topic, I'm just reading you my letter to my junior school teacher, which I wrote 2 years ago, out of gratitude, explaining how important the process of dialogue was and what I learned from it. Would you like to hear me? This is a personal letter, and I went and saw him in 2023, and I had a feeling I must go see him. I had something to give him. And I gave him my 2 books and another book called Living Foundations for Learning. And for me, because of the process of dialogue, that encouraged me to appreciate the process of learning rather than just upholding knowledge. It is a very important shift. The impact of labels can be quite explosive during the early years. When one is learning to speak, the experience is often one of a crisis, because one is not entirely sure what the implications are of being spoken to. Will the speaker be put out if one does not understand? This is often a compelling consideration for children. The speaker has a certain advantage since they are already cognizant of what they are speaking about. So while the child is trying to understand, there is this nervous tension of an impending emergency. With these nerve-wracking associations in place, individuals set out to communicate through language. I wonder if we ever fully unpack why we experience difficulty in the first place. I find that opportunity for discourse, inquiry, and dialogue enables one to monitor the complex demands of verbal communication from the early years. The words, when spoken, have no direct relationship to what is obviously observable. They can refer to what is often not present. What is more, one has to go through the laborious process of recalling information to make sense of what is being spoken about. I think children need to speak in the company of peers in order to overcome these nerves and realize that this is an universal problem, not their personal problem. It is universal. It is difficult to learn and say things exactly as you wish them to. You often miss out on information and there is confusion. So the child learns by watching others and also undertaking the challenge to speak and express themselves, they're learning immensely about what it is, how to use language, how not to offend people, how to pause and listen to others, to understand what others are saying. These are social skills. But unless they have a process dedicated to give them the freedom to engage in dialogue, they won't learn these skills. When words prevail, I find that the opportunity for discursive inquiry and dialogue enables one to monitor the complex demands of verbal communication from the early years. The words, when spoken, have no direct relationship to what is obviously observable. I think the children begin to slowly get a feeling of panic when they're talking about imaginary things, and they have to also use their imagination greatly when they're trying to understand what others are saying. So you're actually just stimulating the imagination through a school where dialogue is not a central core of the education process. When words prevail, the immersive feeling of great reflection is shattered. The world explodes with a host of verbal injunctions, requiring one to engage in the challenging task of building an scenario by putting abstract and actual things together in an effort to make sense of what is happening. Imagine what happens to the child when they're only exposed to language as a means of transferring information. They suddenly can't, they're thinking of flowers, but they can't smell the flower. You know, your head is locked up in imagining the perfume, in imagining things, the warmth and the delight of life. You're just basically exercising imagination. We are saying, let them learn to use this language comfortably, with ease, not with fear, but comfortably with ease. Give them the opportunity, and dialogue, the process of dialogue, does give them that opportunity. I think Nagabhushanam sir has tremendous background in dialogue, but the problem with me in the West is they think dialogue is an adult situation. It's something that adults undertake. When I say, please introduce your children to this process, they wonder if they'll be just wasting the children's time. But you find from what Naga has to say that children do enjoy and benefit from the process of dialogue. All this takes place with an expectation of a response which will be in accord with speaker's demand to be understood. So the child is trying to use language, and in a situation where there is no formal place, they're worried, will I be able to, can I say it well? Will they understand me? If they don't understand me, will they be unhappy with me? How is a child to satisfy such complex demands? Without the practice that dialogue creates, the situation of dialogue creates, how can children gain the confidence to use language with clarity, with pause, and not get offended when someone doesn't understand? With the process, they get to practice, they learn from others, they learn from each other that it is okay to make mistakes. It is all right if you can't convey what you want, what you really want. Other people might not understand. From a child's perspective, such interactions are often charged with the real possibility of a failure to communicate. So the whole exchange is far more complex than adults appreciate. Furthermore, from a child's perspective, not understanding what is implied leaves the mind struggling with a sense of loss. Gradually, even more complex feelings of inadequacy and regret eventually emerge. These are strong emotions to contend with during the early years. For example, I found that the churning in the pit of my stomach was a familiar feeling till language became well established. So we don't want our children to suffer. We want them to learn to use language with ease and with grace. I suggest that a feeling of crisis will continue to wreak havoc psychologically if children learn to cope with the complexity without fully understanding that words can only ever carry abstract information, that words inevitably relate to information recalled from the past. I'm nearly finishing. It is this dilemma that can be unraveled by the process of dialogue, where children are enabled to appreciate together the complex nature of the challenges issued to them by their community. During the process of dialogue, they can share the dilemma they face daily as they begin to explore the implications of engaging verbally with others. They can even catch sight of the fact that adults rely on words to convey important information, unlike children who are naturally prone to rely on observation to feel secure. So if you want your children to grow up feeling secure using language, I suggest that you work with this school, and it's a beautiful school, and I'm very impressed by the present company. They will guide you towards a process that has worked with my generation. I was born in 1961, is gaining interest right across the world, and I'm determined to push it home. Thank you for your kind audience.
Thank you, Geetha, for such lovely words and with the deep significance in education. I must say, dear friends, that Geetha has been conducting these dialogues and inquiry for a long time, perhaps more than 40 years now. But she does it with adults, and recently, a couple of years ago, we found one school near Madanapalli where Geetha and myself, we started the dialogue with the rural children, and it really kicked off well, and children are able to think and answer and use appropriate language. I think that is what Geetha has been saying. And I must also tell the parents now that perhaps some of you are aware that we also conduct dialogues in the school. I talk to children, I talk to them taking certain topics, and then we explore. We exchange ideas, we exchange thoughts. We go deep into the mechanism of the topic. And that is happening, and children are very well participating, and they are keen to listen, they are keen to explore into certain things. So I'd also like the parents to participate, and we'll have many such occasions where we can together explore. We've already had 2 such occasions where we have explored education and the child, and recently we've had parenting workshop also. Now,